Objects are a very efficient and useful way of storing information. I'm going to begin by using a car as an example. So we could create an object that described the different properties of what the car was. And in doing so, we create something like this here, where essentially we have name-value pairs, so that for any property we can access. So we want to know the color of the car, for example. The color would be red. Max speed, seats, wheels, anything like that. So I'm just going to jump in and show you an example. So essentially what objects can do is they can contain as much information as you like, and essentially you can have a name-value pair, so that you can access this information by putting in that you need to know the color, for example. So I'm going to change this to my car, because of course we could have lots of different car objects. So the way we can access a singular property from one of our objects here, for example my car, what we can do is we can just put, let's just put value for now as a variable. We just put my car object, then dot, and the property that we want to get. So we could, for example, just put this, and then this will output red. There we go. So we can change this, we could do max speed instead. There we go, perfect. So essentially these can be as long as you want, and when they're stored in data, they're not like arrays where they're stored by index, where they're stored by their names. So you can get the values by just putting in the names. There's another way that you can access a property, and that's by putting this in square brackets, but I don't want to confuse things, so we're just going to focus on having the object, then dot the name of the property that you want to access, or the value you want to access. So you don't just have to do this for cars, you could do that for people as well. You could put in traits like their name, their eye colors, their skills, whatever you like. But we don't even have to focus just on a singular object. We could have an object that contains all of the different populations of the countries in the world. Obviously these aren't correct, I'm just using it as an example. So just to show you how we create an object to do it together, I hope you're coding along too. You create a variable, and we can just call this test, for example, and then we use the curly brackets. So then we first create a name. So let's say, for example, we want to store let's say we're a zoo and we want to store the number of different animals we have. So we could put in monkeys. Let's say we have 4 monkeys. So we put in the name, and then we put in a colon. After the colon comes the value. Then we separate that with a comma, and we could add the next one. Lions, 10. Let's say flamingos, we have, so then we separate lions, we separate this with a comma, then we put in our next name, then a colon and a value. Let's say we have 106,000 flamingos, because we love our flamingos. So hopefully you're coding along with me, and you can have a go now. See if you can work out how to now access the number of flamingos we have. So the way we do it, if you've worked it out already, we put test.flamingos. And you'll see if I refresh this and run it, we now get the output of how many flamingos there are. So that's the basics of how you can create your own objects. They're incredibly useful, especially when you have a lot of information and you want to be able to get the information you need based on some kind of name. For example, let's say with the zoo, you want to just put in the animal name, or for example, with a specific car, you just want to get its color or something like that. So now let's look at how we can add new properties to, for example, the car. Let's say we want to also include, let's say, the engine size. So, but we're not going to actually add it here. What we're going to do is down here, we can actually put var, and then we put the name of the object, so my car object, then dot, and then let's call it engine size equals I don't know, I'm not great with cars. So let's go for 2 litres. Okay, so now what this has done is it's taken the myCar object, and because it doesn't have a name like this currently within the object, it's going to add it in. And it's going to add it in with the value of 2 litres. So now if we put the value in here as myCar object dot engine size, it should output 2 litres. Oh, of course, I put var in here. We're not creating a new variable here. We're just adding to the existing object. So as you can see, that has now been accepted into myCar object because we used it here. So what we've gone over in this lecture is essentially that we can create objects. Objects are really useful if we need to find information, find values from names that we have stored. For example, if we want to store information on one specific object, for example a car or a person, we can also store more information, for example the populations in different countries. Then once we've created an object, we can add to that object by simply using the name of the object, then dot, then the name of the new name, and then you equals the property. The syntax for creating a new object is you do var object name, then equals curly brackets, then you use the name and then the value. And that's all there is to it. And as we go on, you'll see that objects can be very useful in storing and getting back lots of data very efficiently. So I recommend that you try and create at least 3 of your own objects and be creative with the information that you store in them. So for example, storing information on just one object, like a car or a building or a football player or something like that, and then try and expand it to something like populations in the different countries or something like that. So have a go at that, and I'll see you in the next lecture.